Hi there! In today's video I'm continuing with my ChatGPT Clone project. Now I have made some changes to the code since the previous video to fix some of the formatting issues. So one of the problems was that if I asked it to produce some code, sometimes it didn't put the code inside the Markdown code blocks. And because Markdown doesn't support line breaks, then all of that code went into one line. So now I can say something like, write hello world in C, and it will actually write it like this. And another problem was that this include statement was converted into a Markdown header because it started with this hash symbol. But I found that in the Markdown converter that I used, there's this require space before heading text setting, and that fixed the issue. And there was another problem. I could not include /n inside the code because it was converted into an actual new line. But now that is solved as well. So what I did is that I actually converted the message that I get from ChatGPT into JSON. So this will actually do the conversion from a new line into a /n and a /n into a literal /n. So now I can do something like this. I can say, write 5 animal names, 1 per line, no markdown. And it will produce exactly what I wanted. And then I can say, now create a PHP code that does the same. And then it will write the PHP code and it will highlight it beautifully. And I can say, can you change the BR into a new line? And it will happily do that, and it will add the new line here. And then I can also say, write a short article about PHP. Use Markdown, headings, styling, and links. And then it will actually say, PHP, the hypertext preprocessor. What is PHP? Advantages of PHP. Getting started with PHP. And it will write this whole article and it will beautifully format it for us. Learning PHP. Conclusion. Now, it didn't add links as I asked it to, but trust me, it can create links as well. But now, in today's video, what I would like to do is I would like to make it so that the chat history will persist when I refresh the page. Because right now, if I refresh this page, all of the chat history disappears. So currently, every time I send a message, I also send the chat history to the endpoint, which is not a great way to do it, especially because I am using the get method to do it. So I'm just using here in the EventSouce URL, I add the context here. So actually there will be a limit to this because you can't have a really long URL. So first of all, I would like to change this to the post method, if that is possible. I actually don't know because I'm not very familiar with the EventSouce in JavaScript. But even if we cannot change it to post, we will remove this context here and we will do it in the message.php side. So here we will start a session and then we will save the chat history to the session. So let's do that first. So I will do exactly this. I will just send the message to the EventSouce. And then in my message.php, here I'm getting the context from the get parameter. So I will change this to be just session context. And if we don't have the context yet, I will default it to an empty array. And I will have to call session start. Actually, should I call it here? Probably. And then currently in the script.js, I am appending to the context somewhere. Here, I'm adding the question and answer to the context. But I don't want to do this anymore because that will be handled on the PHP side. So I will remove this and I will remove this. And then I will go to message.php and here I will add it to the context session. So let's scroll down and see where are we setting the message. Okay, here is the message. So in fact what I will do is I will just say here session context equals messages. So this messages array is the array of messages that we send to ChatGPT. So this should just save it to the context so that we have the previous messages the next time we send a message. But actually this is not enough. We have to add the response from ChatGPT to the context as well. So let's in fact move this down a bit. And I am going to have to get the response text into a variable. So let's do that. Let's add this here and I will copy this code and paste it here. And I will change the role here to assistant, and I will call this the response text. Now, because I'm using this streaming method, I don't just get the response from ChatGPT. It comes in parts. So here we are sending to the client a part of the content. So what I will have to do is I will have to say response text is an empty string. And then what I have to do is I have to say here response text dot equals content. And I'm not actually going to have this because this is inside of a function. So what I will do is I will use the response text here. So that should work. So I should be able to write to the response text variable when I use the use keyword here with this function. So now that we are saving the context to the session, now we should load the chat history based on the context on the front end. So I will have to change my index.html into an index.php. And I will have to add here a loop where we go through all of the chat history. So I will say chat history is session context or an empty array. And then for each of the chat history as chat message, we will echo div class is message. I forgot what I called this element. It will be chat message with a class incoming message or outgoing message. So we will say class chat message, and I will add here the direction, and I will end this div, and here I will add the actual chat message. So I should call HTML special characters, and I should pass in here chat message content. And in fact, I should then do the Markdown conversion for this. So let's first say that the direction will be chat message role. If the role is user, then it is going to be outgoing. Otherwise, it will be incoming. Now, I might change the class to just user or assistant, so it will be easier. But let's do it like this for now. So the direction is outgoing if the role is user, otherwise it is incoming. And I will add here dash message. And I will have to do session start here. So now that should work. So let's refresh and see if we have anything. We do not have anything. But what I think is happening here is that the event source is not sending the session ID along with this message. Now, one problem might be that we didn't actually set the session before, so maybe we didn't have the session. So let's first say hello, and we are going to get some answer, hopefully. Let's refresh again and say hello. Stopped. Why are we not getting anything? Let's see the headers. Are we sending? Yes, we are sending the session cookie here. So that should be fine, but something is not working. So let's go back to our message.php. And the thing is, I was calling JSON decode. So the problem is that previously the context was an object, but now it is an array. So let's see where we are using it. Ah, that's correct. So before I saved the context as just an array with the key 0 and 1. But now that is not going to work. So what I have to do now is I have to say it is the message content. And this will be the role. And actually I don't need the other one because the context will have all of the messages already. So I can just do that. Now, in fact, I can simplify this a lot since the context will already be in this format. But I'm not quite sure how I add the context to the messages array. Can I just use array merge? Because array push only adds once. So I will not waste any time on this now. You can send me a pull request on my GitHub page with your better solution for all of this stuff. So we are setting the messages to nothing, an empty array, and then if we have a system message in the settings, we add that as the first message. And then we go through the context and we add all of those messages into the messages array. And then we add the new message to the messages array. And then what we do in the end is we add the response text as the assistant message. and then we save the context. So let's see if this works now. So let's refresh, and I will say hello. And actually we got something here because there's this empty space here. So let's take a look what is here. Okay, I just made some stupid mistake here, so let's go back. I should have a quotation mark here. And let me reset this for now. So I will reset it to an empty array. And let's refresh. So if I now say hello, how can I assist you today? Great. So now if I remove this clearing of the session and I refresh this page, then I should have some messages here. I have my hello, but I don't have the response. So why is that? We have content here, which is response text. Perhaps this is not working properly. I probably need to pass it as a reference and then it will work. So let's refresh, and I actually want to empty out the session again. And then I will remove this and I will say hello. And if I now refresh, now I have the chat history. Now it is not formatted properly. There's no paragraph tag in there, so it looks like this, but I have to fix that. So now I should be able to say something like, can you write a PHP code that lists 5 foods? Sure, here's a simple PHP code that lists 5 foods. Okay, so it works. Now let's see, I in fact have a problem here. I'm not getting the new lines here for some reason. But let's see if it will remember this. Yes, so now we have it just as the markdown. But what if I now say something like, can you change the foods to different ones? So will it remember now the context? Okay, so yes, it remembers the context. So now it works. Now we're only sending the latest message, and then it remembers the chat history. So if I refresh this again, then it looks like this. But now I want to convert these into HTML from Markdown. So how should we do that? So what I will do is I will add to the script.js a script that on the first page load, it will go through all of the messages and it will convert them from Markdown to HTML. So let's add down here document.add_event_listener DOM content loaded. And here I will say let messages equal document.querySelector all of chat message. And then I will say messages.forEach, and this will be a function which I think gets the element. Okay, gets the element and the key. So I just want the element. I will call it message. And I will just call update message with message.text content. That should work. Maybe that's a bit of a hacky way of doing this, but it should work. Because in the update message function, I am actually doing the Markdown conversion. So if I now refresh this, it will be converted into Markdown. So that's pretty good. Now we should have a button for creating a new conversation, because right now there's no way to remove this chat history except to do it manually in the code or remove or change the session ID. So let's do that. Let's add a new file here and we will call it clearchat.php. And here we will just do session start and session context equals an empty array. So this is just a simple endpoint for clearing the chat. And then I will add here a button to do that. So I will add just button class clear chat. And I will say clear chat. And let's refresh this and let's style this. So what should this look like? Let's just put it position fixed, top 10 pixels, left 10 pixels. And let's put a padding of 8 pixels and a border radius of 15 pixels, 12 pixels, border none, and let's add a bit more padding, 10 pixels, and let's add cursor pointer. Okay, that's pretty good. So let's add this style. In our style.css, I will just add here clear chat with this style. So if I refresh this page, it will look like this. Great. Now I will add some kind of effect. Okay, now there's a bit of an effect on hover. And then I have to actually implement the button click. So that will be just, I'll add it here in the DOM content loaded. I will say let clear chat button equal document query selector clear chat. And clear chat button, add event listener, click. And what will we do here? We will just fetch /clear chat.php. And do I actually have to do anything here? Like, I should check for errors, but will this actually fetch it already? And then I just say chat messages. Do I have that somewhere? Message list. So I can just say message list dot inner HTML is empty. And I refresh this page. And if I click here, it empties it. If I refresh, it is empty. So that works. So then I can say something like write hello world in Rust. And it will write it. Now, something is wrong with these /ends here. Use Markdown. Whoa. Okay, my updates to the processing of the Markdown did not really seem to work. And it didn't understand that I wanted it to use Markdown in this response about hello world in Rust. So it wrote hello world in Markdown, but somehow it converted everything into a heading. So let me actually put some console logging here. I will console log the new message here. In fact, right there. So I can actually see what is going on. So let's see if I can replicate this. So if I say write hello world in Rust, use Markdown. Okay. So now it created this very weird looking response. So let's see what is in the console. What did it do? It created the response perfectly. This is what it should look like. But for some reason, the header was never stopped. That is weird. Oh, what happened here? I think I changed this by accident. This should be 2 spaces and /n, but it turned into /2 spaces and n. What happened here? Let's do that. That is the problem. So let's refresh this. And actually now it works perfectly because this will refresh the Markdown formatting after I refresh the page. So yeah, now it works. So let me check now if everything still works. So I will say write 5 animal names, 1 per line, no Markdown. Now do the same thing in PHP. Great. Can you explain the code? Sure. Start tag PHP and end tag PHP are the opening and closing tags of PHP code. Echo is a statement and so on. Okay, great. Write a short article about the Rust programming language. And I forgot to say, use Markdown formatting. Can you update the article to include Markdown formatting, headers, bold text, and links? Sure. Introduction to Rust programming language. Rust, in bold, is a modern and powerful systems programming language. Performance and safety. Web development in Rust. And then we link to Rocket and Actix and Tide. Learning curve. Alright, so now it works. And if I refresh this page, I still get all these things that I said. Summarize the above in 1 sentence. Rust is fast, safe, and modern systems programming language. Okay, so it still remembers the chat history and the context, even if I refresh the page. So now let's take a look at this event source posting. Can I post to an event source? Now, I'm not sure if we even need to do that, but let's see if that's possible. So now, since this is ChatGPT, then I can just ask it, can I post to event source in JavaScript? No, you cannot post. Okay, so that's it. I cannot post, so we will leave it at that. But this shouldn't be a problem because it will just be the one question. although it can be a long question. Now what we could do is we could add another endpoint and we could send the message to that endpoint, and the endpoint would return with an ID for that message. And then we would send that ID to the event source, and the event source would get the message by that ID. So then we don't have to send the message here in the GET request. But I'm not going to do that in today's video. I think that will take too much time. So that will be a topic for the next video, in which I will implement the conversation history like in ChatGPT. So if I go to chat.openai.com, so here we have this chat history where we can select different conversations and it remembers them and we can continue a specific conversation. So that's what I will do in the next video. So make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see that video. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.